friends. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about what ifs, as in what if, plural. When we are starting a new project, the tendency can be to want to get everything right, which is not a bad tendency by any means, right? We want to put our best foot forward in every way, shape, and form. Now, the tricky thing is that sometimes we can take it from trying to put our best foot forward to trying to get everything perfect, which of course we know there's no such thing as perfection, to then trying to anticipate any possible thing that could go wrong. And that is real. The perfectionism, not great, but the moving into trying to anticipate every single possible thing that could go wrong, that's where we start to get into trouble, and that's where it's a sign that our resistance is really starting to creep up. It's one thing to think, it's one thing to prepare yourself for possible outcomes. Okay, well, if this happened, what would I do? But it's another thing, and preparing yourself for possible outcomes in like the next step. Like, okay, if I'm going to send a pitch to this company I'm really interested in. If I hear back from them, what do I do next? What if I don't hear back from them? What do I do next? If you don't hear back, you send a follow-up a week later. We know this, right? So preparing for what ifs in like one step ahead of where you are, 2 steps ahead of where you are, that can be great. But when you start getting into projecting potential what ifs way into the future, like what if I do work for a client and they approve something and they put it up on their website and there's an error in it? Whose trouble is that? Am I going to be in trouble? Am I legally liable? Do I need to have insurance? When you start anticipating what ifs that are way far into the future and aren't within the current realm of possibilities, that's where you're going to start spiraling out, and that is a sign that your resistance is throwing up these potentials, these potentialities, that's a word, right? To try to keep you from taking any action. It's one thing to anticipate potential outcomes, like I was saying, 1 or 2 steps ahead. That's smart. That's good planning. That's strategy. But when you start anticipating potential outcomes of potential outcomes of potential outcomes, that's where you really start spiraling. And for those of us who are prone to anxiety, that's where the anxiety gets kicked up. And that's where it's really easy, once that anxiety starts getting kicked up, to then stop and go, holy stuff, this is all so scary. I can't take any action. I need to put my hood up and just get into the fetal position for a little while. And the thing about thinking about what ifs is the way that our human brains work is that we often think in terms of, what if I fail in this way? What if this goes wrong? What if this bad outcome happens? Whereas there is often just as much potential, if not more, that things go right. So instead of, I would encourage you to, when you start thinking about the what ifs, instead of what if insert something bad, what if insert something good. So what if the client doesn't like my copy? What do I do then? Train yourself to also start thinking, okay, well, what if the client does like my copy? What if I knock this out of the park? Or what if they have feedback and then I incorporate that feedback after a round or 2 and they love the work that I've done? The more that we perseverate on negatives and things, and the more that we worry about things, the more it creates a feedback loop to continue to worry about things. The best way to stay focused on moving ahead and stay focused on what you can actually control is to keep your eyes on your own page, to keep your eyes on the step that you are in and maybe the step or two after that. So you pitched a client and now you have a call coming up with the client. Okay, so your next step, right, is to do as much research and prepare as much as you can and make some good notes for questions to have on that call with the client. And then the step after that is to have the call with the client. And then at that point, remember that you can't know the future, so you don't know how that call is going to go. So when you're thinking when you're planning, you can really only plan 1 or 2 steps ahead. Any further than that is guessing. And guessing isn't going to get you anywhere. Worrying isn't going to get you anywhere. Look at the next step, not the whole staircase. It's when we start to try to look at the whole staircase, when we're trying to see the whole path, that we then start spiraling, and our brain and that resistance comes up with all kinds of potential scary outcomes. And that is not the way to get yourself to take action and keep moving forward. Scary outcomes are what make us want to put our head in the sands, our heads underneath our blankets, and hide from everything. But instead, when you focus on what you can actually control and what the next two steps are, because beyond that, who knows, that's when you can stay focused on the actual potentials, the what if this happens or what if this happens, and you can come up with an answer to the what if. Well, what if I'm on a call with a client and they want to talk more about my experience with this project? You can answer that. But anytime you go more than a few steps ahead, anytime you start finding yourself spiraling out into what if this and what if this and what if this, it's a little sign that the resistance is starting to pop back up. Pull yourself back in and focus on what you are doing. Focus on your most important tasks for today. And again, you can think 1, maybe 2 steps next, but trying to anticipate all possible outcomes is just going to make you crazy. I guarantee it. And also, don't forget what if it all turns out really, really well? What if I do better than I even ever anticipated doing? What if my success is bigger than I even dreamed it would be? Because there's just as much potential for that to happen, as long as you keep taking action and you keep moving forward.